The rains of Azerod fell, making the skin of canyon tribesmen transparent before they started distrusting anyone hiding the organs keeping them alive. The rains of Azerod fell, making coastal tribesmen deaf before they started distrusting anyone hearing music in lapping waves, both canyon and coast waging perpetual war in pursuit of secrets already known. Prisoners of the canyon felt living dissection, while prisoners of the coast suffered large bells ringing over their heads until their eardrums shatter and bleed. I sent orders of peace to both chiefs. On papyrus the rains of Azerod fell upon and dissolved, returning my messengers in a daze, describing it as a place with muddy fields of emerald grass, where the petrified corpses of 1,000 fowls staring upwards choke on their twisted agony. Beaks bent and screaming, with wings raised in an acceptance of mass death. Or a desperate invocation of the divine, a last plea for grace, as the rains of Azerod fell.
Wow.
The big cliche is spreading rose petals on a bed, but I sometimes speculate outside what's publicly acceptable and wonder if sadomasochists are more aroused by poison ivy leaves instead. If they surround the room not with candles, but Venus flytraps twisting in unison, eating flies coming through the window, attracted to beads of sweat on suffering, sexually satisfied bodies. Perhaps those lovers lick the rashes forming on their partner's skin and find it even more sensitively orgasmic to feel nails pull across their affected patches of flesh. We imagine the pain realms of hell using whips, chains, and red-hot restraints, easily overlooking their subtle devils, who tend to gardens of nightshade and all of the poisonous flower petals. Thank you. You know, I take data from what I'm told, plus what I see, plug it in, and the equation keeps spitting out incoherent anarchy. I hear how rude it is to tell people they'd look better if they smile, that we should feel our valid feelings, and that forcing a happy disposition is its own oppressive misery. And everyone seems to agree. But I still see the biggest indicator of success in sizable social circles being how constantly you can portray a toy's icy layers of permanent joy. I must have missed the part in Winnie the Pooh where Eeyore eats the right apple, learns shame for his temperament, and then finally attains a state of worth. Perhaps I never unheard a past partner casually proclaimed justification for my exclusion at work by saying how lately I had been really depressed. And maybe Batman will appear an even darker, more malevolent creature of the night if the Joker successfully fills our atmosphere with low enough levels of his laughing gas that everything gets a bit more pleasant. Though not strange enough to actually stop and listen when someone says, "Wait, something is different." Thanks so much. The best prison cell doesn't need steel bars or layers of physical confinement. All it needs is a vestibule and two unlocked doors, one holding a lens amplifying the length of roads winding behind you, one hiding the promise of wonders soon to come through, and the assurance that what you anticipate is nearly within view, bolstered by a fear of backtracking and recalculating a route to lesser treasures than what you think will appear. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Your voices say you'd love to claim this one's enchantment and that one's realized hope. They must cup their ears, though, to hear you, as you sound distant from the other side of the river. If you'd stood in that spot, you'd not forget to factor in the transactional nature of reality there, where nothing is simply found, achieved, or had. It's all bought, with time, pain, integrity, and yes, occasionally cash. That's why the ones to whom you sing praises on the opposite shore only stare back, slouch, and get that faraway look in their eyes when they hear you. It's not ingratitude. They're remembering what they paid in loss and austerity to stand in that air, feeling less accomplished on some higher plane than spiritually diminished and simply changed. Do not lose faith that we will, one day, learn how to harness the awesomely inert energy of black holes light years away to power our progress and functionality. Since, after all, we have plenty of people operating in and assisting society regularly with massive, gaping chasms of silence inside them. Thank you. While I was strapped in to the passenger side seat of a four-wheel ATV, racing over forest roads and flying through midnight's darkness, I found that releasing my iron grip on the bar attached to the door took more strength than making a clenched fist with an angry hand, or maybe a different kind. But the real trick is learning how to let go without losing a firm grasp on why you deserve the experience of being alive. Thank you so much. Go ask strangers for sympathy. You've never let them down can still be the ideal picture of humanity in which they believe, and there's no fermented history bloating the friendship's mulberry-colored corpse until it bursts. Ask someone who's seen your best alongside your worst for that understanding, and you'll find how much a human mind really recalls, though selectively focused on a psyche's fault lines, when interactions rooted in love are thought of as never involving any mess, when passive-aggressive reactions are mistaken for forms of peacefulness. Thank you. Maybe it was a mistranslation, or someone remembered it wrong in coining the saying, "May God have mercy upon my enemies, because I won't." I found it classy and occasionally necessary to show some mercy to enemies, since, in my experience, God gives out ruthless Old Testament judgments more often than mortals. God, Allah, or Jupiter, Karma, Jehovah, or Fate, the Supreme Being, a flying spaghetti monster, Gaia's will, Yahweh's, the Way of Tao, or the Force, whatever name you prefer, they all become Jason Statham when pursuing and prosecuting perpetrators of violations against harmonious nature. I've seen offenders sealed away in towers, staring out the window at nothing for years, huddled together in cells locked from the inside, eating their shoes and the resultant excrement on a loop, constructing elaborate, mutually reassured illusions in ships breaking down bit by bit, wailing alone on barren farms, topsoil eroded after overcultivation, reminded too late of irrigation when feeling their tears, or dying alone on broken thrones in decaying castle halls. Approaching, I saw each try raising their heads, barely composed, with blank, dumbfounded expressions not registering any recognition. So yes, from time to time, I have held a few of their hands as they expired, although it wasn't cinematic. Set to the sounds of God moving over the face of the waters, it was quiet enough to reflect on decisions, their consequences, and forgiveness, given or not, while pensive and gripping pierced palms, serving as somber reminders of how I have chosen a far less singular thoroughfare. Thank you.